Hello there, my name is Monica. I'm here to introduce you to a fantastic application from Total Training Support Limited. It's called QB Generator. Total Training Support is a company located at Cranfield University, in England, and it's provided training manuals, workbooks, exam banks, and examination software to Part 1 for 7 organizations worldwide, for 25 years. QB Generator is the latest version of their popular exam management software. I'd like to give you a brief overview of just what a powerful tool it is, what it does, its key features, and how it can help your training organization to streamline your exam management and delivery. QB is fully compliant with the Part 1 for 7 regulation and is approved by many aviation competent authorities and safety regulators worldwide. The QB Generator lets us administer aircraft maintenance exams to your trainees, in either paper or electronic format, known as e-exams. Let me walk you through a typical e-exam from the perspective of the examinee. The examinee can take the exam using any digital device, such as a tablet, Windows, Android or iPad. Alternatively, they can take the exam on a desktop or laptop, as long as the device is connected to the host computer via Wi-Fi or a wired network. We have the flexibility to host the QB software on your own server, or we can use TTS server to host it. We can even install multiple databases, such as one for Part 66 basic training exams and another for type training exams. This allows us to keep the two systems separate from each other, and so configure the syllabus structure appropriately. In basic training, the syllabus consists of modules and subsections, while type training is focused on aircraft and engine types, further divided into ATA chapters. Additionally, we can manage and administer our human factors and fuel tank safety recurrent exams using QB. Our trainee, the examinee, logs into the QB system using a tablet computer. A system-generated single-use password, together with the examinee number, is used to log into the exam. After logging in, the examinee must read the conditions and instructions for the exam. These are previously set and configured via the admin settings. Optionally, the QB system can request a digital signature, and it can even take a photo of the examinee via the tablet's built-in camera. These options can be switched on or off, via the admin settings. Once the examinee accepts the conditions by ticking the box, the countdown timer starts, and they can begin the exam. The examinee's image is displayed at the top right of the screen, and the countdown time automatically displays the remaining time allowed in the exam. As the examinee answers the questions, a progress bar and table in the bottom right of the screen help them navigate through the exam. The examinee can skip questions and come back to them later. They can go back and change answers to questions that they already answered. Several display configurations are available for the exam. We can set the display to show all questions on one page, or show one question per page with a next question and back button. We can also set the questions to be shuffled randomly, so each examinee in the exam session has the same questions but they are presented in a randomized order. The answer choices, A, B, and C, are also randomized from one examinee to the next. These options are configurable in the admin settings. After the examinee has answered all the questions, the Mark Exam button appears. If there is still time left in the exam, the examinee can review their answers, double-check them, and change them if needed. When the examinee is ready, they can click the Mark Exam button. Within a few seconds, the result is displayed. Alternatively, we can choose to hide the result and show a pre-configured message, such as see the tutor the next day for their result. We can also optionally show a complete breakdown review of the entire exam, showing to the examinee which questions they answered correctly and those which they answered incorrectly. However, this option is not recommended for official exams where the examinee may get some of the same questions repeated in a resit exam. This option may be more suited to practice exams or mock exams. Let's take a closer look at the administration side of the QB software. QB has a secure login system that requires strong passwords. It also has a feature that locks out users if it suspects a brute force attack. The exams manager is able to set up multiple administrators for the system. He or she can restrict the access of admins to specific modules, aircraft, or engine types, if using a type training database. Additionally, the exams manager can restrict the functions that are available to the administrator. To configure admin permissions, the exams manager logs in and arrives on the home page, which shows the list of admins for each module and the list of currently active examinees. Green ticks indicate that the examinee is currently logged in on a remote device. If an examinee is logged in and not taking an exam, we have the ability to log them out from the home page. Two buttons at the top let us register new administrators and examinees. We can also access the list of existing administrators and examinees in the People section. To demonstrate the details of a typical admin level 2, we click here on Andrew Southard in the list of administrators, and then click on the Subscriptions tab to see the modules for which Andrew is responsible. We have the option to grant Andrew access to specific modules only, set the duration of the subscription, and renew or extend it as required. In so doing, Andrew will not be able to access any of the functions for modules that he is not subscribed to. While still in Andrew's profile, we can click on the Permissions tab to view all the functions of the QB system that Andrew has access to. We can tailor Andrew's access on a granular level by selecting or deselecting some of the functions as required. For instance, we can prevent Andrew from accessing the system settings. In the People section, we can find a list of examinees by clicking on Examinees. This list can be filtered by name or class number for easy access. To register a new examinee, simply click on the Register New Examinee button. This takes us to a blank registration page where we enter details such as the examinee's first and last name, title, date and place of birth, and unique examinee number. We can also upload an image of the examinee, which will be displayed on their exam page and any reports generated for them. If we have a whole class of examinees to register, we can save time by entering their details into a text file, and then importing it all at once. This can be done by selecting the Import Text File option. I now show how exam questions can be managed by an administrator. When the administrator logs in, they click on the Questions tab and choose the modules they want to work on. The modules they don't have permission to access will be grayed out. For this demonstration, we choose Module 2. All the questions that were previously uploaded into the system are listed here in subsection order. We can change the order to alphanumeric if we want. Each question listed shows the serial number, the actual question, its answer options A, B, and C, the correct answer, and some statistical analysis. When we click on the edit icon, we can view many more details about the question. We can configure and modify various parameters of a question. For example, if we are working with a basic training database, we can set the module subsection, or the ATA chapter if we are working with a type training database. We can also set the correct answer and the level of the question, which is necessary for the QB to select appropriate questions for an exam based on the Part 66 syllabus. We can edit the question text and answers, and even import images or diagrams to them. The QB comes with a pre-installed library of images, but we can upload our own images if we want. The QB accepts image files in JPEG, GIF, or PNG formats. Additionally, we can trash a question, which moves it to the trash can and prevents it from being used in an exam. However, it can still be viewed for traceability purposes. We also have the ability to approve a question and upload an MP3 voice recording of the question and each of its answers. This is helpful for supporting trainees with dyslexia or for language assessments. Furthermore, we can set a question inhibit, which pairs two questions together. This is useful when one question suggests the answer for another. This feature inhibits the paired question when one of them is randomly selected by QB. The paired question is inhibited, thus prevented it from being selected during the random selection process. Finally, we can see a summary of the question's history and statistics, including the author, approver, and number of times it has been asked in exams. The Facility Index, FI, also shows how difficult or easy the question is. It is calculated on results from previous performance, using a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 indicating that everyone has answered it correctly so far. If we want to see the full history of a question, simply click on the History button. This opens a pop-up screen that shows the entire history of the question. We can see a snapshot of every previous version before revisions. It shows who made the revision, who approved the revision, and the dates of the revisions and approvals. We can even print out this page, for use in any question review meeting. To search and filter for specific questions, we go back to the main questions page. In the Search and Filter panel, we can isolate questions by subsection or ATA chapter, select multiple subsections or ATA chapters. We can filter questions by license category, by level, approved or unapproved, and by author. Additionally, we can easily identify questions that are outside of the acceptable facility index range, and where there is a significant population. Population refers to the number of times that a question has been asked in exams. On the questions page, we can also generate a hand-picked exam. This is where the examiner manually selects each question. Normally, we let the software select the questions randomly and automatically. We can print the questions and export them to a variety of formats such as Microsoft Word or a text file. Note that both the hand-picked exam and the print questions functions can be disabled for specific administrators. We can use bulk functions to edit, copy, move, and trash multiple questions at once. The copy and move function allows us to copy or move multiple selected questions to other modules, or to other aircraft and engine types if we are working with a type training database. To use the bulk edit function, tick to select the multiple questions we want to edit. Click Edit, and apply. The selected questions will show up in a new page, where we can edit their parameters, such as the subsection, question level, and even change the author of the question. We can make all these changes to multiple questions, or all the questions, simultaneously. If we need to add new questions to the database, there are several methods we can use. For a small number of questions, we can manually type them in. However, if we have a large number of questions, it's best to upload them from a text file or spreadsheet. This can be done with just a few clicks. Keep in mind that the source file must be properly configured. An example file is available for download to help us understand the required format. To access the settings for the QB system, click on the Settings button. This is available to all Level 1 administrators, as well as Level 2 administrators who have been given permission to access the settings by a Level 1 administrator. The Settings page has several tabs. Let's start with the General Settings tab. Here, we can turn on or off the approved questions system. If we turn it off, the QB will select all questions, whether they are approved or not. Approved questions are those that have been checked by an independent subject specialist, nominated by the exams manager for the purpose. Note that each setting button or control has a pop-up tooltip. This helps to remind us of the function's purpose. We can also set the question levels to inclusive or exclusive. For inclusive, the QB system selects questions, up to, and including the level specified in the Part 66 syllabus. For exclusive, the QB system selects questions only, at the level specified in the Part 66 syllabus. For basic training exams, it should be set to exclusive. For type training exams, it can be set to inclusive. Additionally, we can set the pass mark for the exam and the time allowed, in seconds, for each question. This number will be multiplied by the quantity of questions in the exam, to determine the total time allowed for the exam. In the question hibernation section, we can set the percentage of questions from any exam generation that will be put out of use for the next exam. This is useful to ensure that the resit exam will be sufficiently different from the original exam. Typically, 20% is the preferred figure for this setting. If we have lots of questions in our database, we can switch this off entirely. We can set additional parameters for an exam in the wildcard settings. For example, we can set the location of the exam or the name of the examiner. We simply type the parameter, and the QB will ask us for this information whenever a new exam is generated. We can use one or both, or leave them blank to switch them off entirely. Next, I'll guide you through the printed exam settings. In this section, we can choose to set the printed answer sheet bubble format, circles, or squares. Additionally, we have the option to hide or show titles for the subsections or ATA chapters. We can also choose whether or not to display question levels on the exam paper. Another important feature is the paper size configuration. This only needs to be done once during system setup. After that, it does not require any further adjustments. Furthermore, we can upload and configure a logo image that will appear on the exam title page. We can then set what information we want to show on the printed title page, header, and footer. We can also set instructions and conditions for the exam, which will be printed on the answer sheet. These settings need to be configured only once during setup. All dynamic information, such as module number and name, and date, will be automatically inserted at each exam generation. Now I'll show you the e-exam settings. With e-exams, we have more options to customize than we do for printed exams. First, we can choose how the examinee will access the exam, that is, either by using a password or a QR code. The QR code can be used if the examinee is taking the exam on a tablet. They can simply scan the QR code with their tablet's camera and access the exam immediately, without requiring a password. Next, we can decide how we want the questions to appear on the examinee's screen. We can choose to display them randomly or serially. Random means the questions are shuffled, while serial means that everyone receives the questions in the same order. We can also choose to display all the questions on a single page, or one question per page with a progress table. We can hide the subsection titles and question levels from the exam output. Additionally, we can set what appears after the examinee clicks the Mark Exam button. We can choose to hide the % result, or show it, optionally with the detailed question breakdown. If we want the QB to read aloud the questions and answers, we can enable the audio narration option. We can choose whether the examinee starts the exam independently, or if the examiner starts the exam for everyone simultaneously. We can set the pre-exam conditions and instructions by using this pop-up page. If the examinees are using the Android or iPad app that comes with the QB software, we can command the digital on-screen sign-in, and we can command the face photo function. These inputs are saved on the exam records and displayed on any examinee exam report. Finally, we can configure the text that will display after the examinee clicks the Mark Exam button. This text displays, regardless of whether we have set to hide, or to show, the % exam result. With QB, we have the option to configure certificates for examinees who pass the exam in the Certificates tab. To design the certificate, we create a Microsoft Word document with our preferred format style, logo image, and border design. We also set hotspots for dynamic data such as the examinee's name, date and place of birth, exam date, module name and number, license category, and percentage result. These data items are automatically inserted when we generate the certificate, which also includes a unique and incremental certificate number. The generated certificates are in Microsoft Word format, so we can edit them further if needed. In the Modules and Subsections tabs, we can configure the entire syllabus structure and content, including the module name and number, applicable license categories, and the total number of questions required for each module. We can add new modules by clicking the Add a Module button. We fill in the new module number, name, and applicable license categories and exam question quantities for each category. We can also add new modules, for example, if we want to set up special exams, like extension exams, for category B1 to B2, or category A to B1. In the Subsections tab, we set the name and number of the subsections, and the question levels, according to the applicable license categories, as specified in the Part 66 syllabus, and the quantities of questions to be selected for each subsection. We can also copy and paste the subsection descriptions from the syllabus. At the bottom of the screen, we keep a tally of the quantities of questions per subsection, and we check that we are on target for the total question quantities, as required by the Part 66 regulation. The two tabs also display the quantity of questions stored in the database for each module and each subsection, as well as the total quantity of questions in the database. Note that if we are working with a type training database, the words modules and subsections will be replaced with types and ATA chapters. The Backup tab in the QB system allows us to set up backups for our stored data. We can schedule automatic backups daily, weekly, or monthly, and up to 6 backups can be stored on the server. We can also export any of these backups to our local computer, and then to a removable flash drive, ensuring secure storage in an air-gapped environment. However, it's important that we ensure proper security measures are in place when exporting QB system data. The Restore button is provided for rolling back data to any of the 6 previous backup events. In case of a server failure or cyber attack, we can rebuild the QB installation and restore the data from the air-gapped backup to ensure its continuity. Let me explain how we can manage the previously conducted exams. On the Exams tab, we will see the list of previous exams, with the most recent exam at the top. When we open the exam, we see several tabs that contain detailed information about the exam. The Basic Information tab shows the overall parameters for the exam, such as the module, date, license category, and included subsections and questions quantities. There is also a button that opens a pop-up that lets us print the exam in its entirety, even if it was an e-exam. In the Question Details tab, we see the details of the specific questions that were on the exam. Here, we can exclude a question by unticking the Include checkbox if there was a discrepancy with any of the questions. This removes the question from the exam, and recalculates the examinee's results, based on a fewer number of questions. Alternatively, we can accredit every examinee with a correct response to the question. Which of these two actions we take, depends upon a management-level review of the question and takes into account the nature of the discrepancy. Of course, the problematic question must receive appropriate remedial action following the review. The question serial numbers displayed are hyperlinks that takes us directly to the edit page for the respective question, so we can revise the question as appropriate. In the Results per Question tab, we see the responses to each of the questions provided by each examinee. We also see which of the examinees have completed the exam, and those which have yet to complete it. From this screen, we can set examinees as absent, as required. A local facility index is also displayed. This can be used to trigger an investigation if less than a specific threshold of examinees, example 50%, fail to answer any question correctly. After this exam is closed, the local facility index is aggregated to those of all previous uses of the question, and it forms an increasingly accurate statistical analysis of each question. In the Results per Examinee tab, we see a list of the examinees and their respective results. When the exam is closed, we are able to print exam reports, certificates, and knowledge deficiency reports. In the Examinee Certificates tab, we can generate certificates and knowledge deficiency reports. Let's switch to a closed exam so that I can demonstrate these reports. This particular exam is a closed exam. For those examinees who are unsuccessful in passing the exam, we can open a knowledge deficiency report, also known as a KDR. The KDR provides detailed information about the exam, such as the percentage result obtained, and a breakdown of the examinee's performance per subsection. This report helps the examinee to understand which parts of the syllabus they need to study, in order to pass the resit exam. The KDR text can be copied and pasted into a letterhead paper and provided to the examinee. This meets the regulatory requirement to provide feedback to examinees after each exam. For those examinees who passed the exam, we have the option to generate a certificate of recognition. The design and format of the certificate was set up in the settings. All we need to do now is enter specific information, and click the Generate Certificate button. The certificate is generated in Microsoft Word, and saved to the local hard drive. It looks similar to what we see here, with all the examinee and exam information automatically inserted. Let's talk about how to generate an exam. First, we need to check the home page to ensure that the correct examinees are subscribed to the exam we want to generate. If they are already subscribed, we can click on the Generate Exam button. However, if they are not subscribed, then we need to go to the examinee's profile page and subscribe them to the module. We can subscribe an entire class of examinees to the module simultaneously, in a single click action, similar to how we subscribed the administrators to the modules we wanted to allow them access. For this demo, let's generate a Module 2 exam for the class of 2023. After clicking on the Generate Exam button, we come to the Exam Parameters page. Here, we can select the module, or type, if we're working with a type training database. Next, we set the class, the date, and the start time of the exam. For e-exams, the start time is important because the examinee will not be allowed to start the exam before this start time that we set here. We also set the license category, which determines the questions available for the exam. The first column shows the available questions, and if any numbers are shown in brackets, it means some questions are hibernating, that is, they are unavailable because they were used in the previous exam generation in this module. The right column shows the quantity of random questions chosen from the database. It chooses only questions at the levels according to the Part 66 syllabus. These are the presets that we set in the settings, but we can override them if we want to make a special exam in this instance. Note that the exam question quantities change when we change the license categories, as different categories require questions of different levels, and the quantities in the database vary accordingly. The QB system does not allow us to generate the exam if any subsections have insufficient questions. In this demo, we will set some of the subsection question quantities to 0. When we have sufficient questions in every subsection to make an exam, the Save Settings and Generate Exam button becomes available. Finally, when we are happy with the exam parameters, we can click on the Generate Exam button to generate the exam. The exam has been generated, but it has not been saved yet. We have two options to save it, as a printable exam, or as an e-exam. Before that, we need to review the exam by opening the repository, which shows us the questions that the QB has randomly selected. The questions are displayed under their respective subsection or ATA chapter headings. We have the option to delete any conflicting questions and replace them with carefully chosen alternatives. We can then close the repository and open the exam to preview it for printing. By selecting Print Preview, we can check the question layout on the page. If we have configured the page size correctly in the system settings, there will be no question split across 2 pages. That means the last question on each page will be displayed in its entirety on the page. Once we're satisfied with the questions and formatting on the exam, we can proceed to save the exam, as an e-exam, or as a printed exam. Once saved, the exam will be available to the designated examinees on the specified date and time as set up in the exam configuration. We can also print the attendance sheet, which displays a single-use, randomly generated unique password that examinees use to access the exam, on their desktops or tablets. And there we have it. The exam is now ready for the examinees to take.